In the world of high stakes leadership, talent is everywhere. But as every executive listening knows, talent alone doesn't survive a 14 hours day of back to back crisis management, ballroom battles, and the relentless noise of 35,000 daily decisions. When the pressure never lets up, what separates those who burn out from those who break through? My guest today argues that the ultimate competitive advantage isn't being the loudest person in the room, it is finding a quiet edge. Evan Marks is the founder of M1 Performance Group after a high octane career on Wall Street that led to a life altering wake up call. Evan dedicated himself to the science of elite performance. He now coaches top tier executives on how to turn emotional mastery and physiological composure into a roadmap for success. Today, we're going to dive into his upcoming book, The Quiet Edge. We are going to be discussing about how to engineer your day so you don't waste your best energy on the wrong decisions. We are going to talk about the 60-second reset drill you can use between high conflict meetings and why high support is a secret ingredient to a high pressure and a results driven culture. If you have ever felt like the noise of the corporate wall is drowning out of your clarity, this episode is your manual for taking it back. Evan, welcome to the show, and I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to discuss your upcoming book.
Ivan, first of all, thank you for that wonderful intro. Yeah, we're very excited about this book. It's dated the last quarter of 26, but it's my first book, so we'll see how that goes. But it's so interesting, for what you do. Like we always say, pressure is a privilege, and I deal with anywhere from athletes, CEOs, to Wall Street professionals, and especially in this climate right now, there's so much panic and chaos. How does that become an edge? Well, we really believe that in chaos and panic is the greatest time to produce alpha. If you can really understand where you are mentally footed, like what does your internal footing look like? When others panic, to us on the mental game, that's our edge. That's when we can create significant impact, which doesn't hurt top line either. Yeah.
Something that I was just reflecting right now is that it's not so much the quantity of things that or decisions that you have to take during the day, but the uncertainty. It's almost like our brain hates uncertainty, and when we don't have this control of our day, we this is where we crush, right? I don't know what was your feeling when you were back in the days where you were a trader. Was it more about too much being done, or was it too much being done in an uncertain environment?
Well, it's we have a saying at M1: performance equals potential minus interferences. So when you think about chaos, let's say the markets, uncertainty creates volatility. And the only way to really have the ability to shine is that you need volatility and chaos. You need this uncertainty. So we always say you have to be very comfortable with uncertainty and very confident in your behavior. Because when things stay the same, there's no way you can get better. So unfortunately, you need times of volatility up and down to really see how mentally capable you are to leverage yourself. So when I say, my phone's been ringing off the hook this morning because of what's going on overseas, in the Middle East and all that. But my team, I say it's my team, it's my clients, we're ready. Right? We don't live in the game of positive psychology. We live in the world of opportunity. We're opportunist realists. That when things are coming, my people know how to find their sea legs in a way. Right. So we know there's an opportunity here for us to really do something special. And that's what we think. Pressure is a privilege. These people have the ability to create, even in times of uncertainty.
When you're talking about pressure, is it like continuous pressure is still positive, or is pressure from time to time?
Well, there's different degrees of pressure. So when we feel pressure is too high, we have to have the ability to downregulate. You can't get rid of pressure, especially for these people sitting in these seats and making these decisions. This is what they do. But there are times when pressure is too high that we can't make best decisions. So how do we get it to a zone that's still uncomfortable, but we still have the ability to make best decisions? I didn't say right decisions. I said best decisions, because only time will tell if you're right. If we're able to train ourselves that way, it's a massive edge, especially in the game of high decision making, where there are risks. But you need risks in order to really accomplish something. So it's this double-edged sword, but you have to be able to live there. And that's what we train people for.
I love the title of the book, The Quiet Edge. I can see the picture in my head. For an executive who feels like they have to be the loudest of most aggressive person in the room to succeed, what exactly is this quiet edge, and why is something that could be effective?
So when we think about quiet edge, I'm a New Yorker, right? So I am loud by nature. And I realize it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. But when we say the quiet edge, I'll paint a picture. So we know that people have morning routines and they can meditate at 5 a.m, which is wonderful. But what happens when all hell breaks loose and you have to be able to make decisions when the waters are really choppy? That's the quiet edge. So in that moment, you're able to acknowledge your emotions, create mental space, choose a conscious behavior, which gives you a different experience in the outcome that you desire. And that's all circuitry in the brain. So when you think about quiet edge, it's like you could feel the chaos around you. But also, how is Ivan able to seem as cool as a cucumber? That's the quiet edge. I'm not saying that Ivan doesn't have emotions. Of course he does. You need emotions to make decisions. How is he able to take all this external stimuli, including his own internal data, and come up with a decision and not react, but have the ability to respond? That's mental training. So when we talk about the quiet edge, and the book is a favor, we'll get into that, which I'm very excited about. It's how do you find this internal composure in the sea of chaos? And it can't be at 6 a.m. when nothing's going on. In the moment, when we talk about something Ivan called visibility, people are like, where's visibility? Being visible in the moment is being conscious. Remembering to breathe, remembering to stand up and opening up your body, physiology, because it has an effect on the mind. To do that in real time, that's what training is. In the heat of the battle, we don't need to think positive. We're ready. That's where you want to be. It's very powerful. And we train day in and day out, day in and day out. It doesn't stop. But what happens is as you start to build these mental foundations, there's another floor, then another floor, and that's called stretching. But we don't lose sight of the basics of downregulation, aggressive patience, awareness of what's going on emotionally, to create mental space again and again and again and again. Now, does it get easier? Like anything else, it's repetitious. And then what happens, you stretch, then we add. Yeah, it's really, it becomes the science of knowing yourself. And the word we use a lot is you start to really, really trust yourself. It's like we say in the US, I'll take the ball. Give me the ball. I'm confident. But confidence, evidence with consistency builds confidence. So we're in the game of evidence stacking in the moment of visibility.
I love that, because I can easily imagine that What we have to try to do is not that to learn a new concept at the last minute when shit hits the fan, but when if our brain has created some reflexes. So it becomes automatic. The day that it happens, this big thing, we are already prepared. But for that, our brain needs to go into the reflex mode automatically. And for that, you need continuous training. As you said, the consistency is something that is going to help us prepare for this sea of chaos. And by the way, the Sea of Chaos is not something that is going to come tomorrow. No, Sea of Chaos is Ivan early in the morning today looking at Twitter and looking at the news and seeing what is happening in Dubai, what happens in Israel, what happens in Iran, how it all started, the lies from one side to the other, and to don't know what to believe. And you need somehow to control your emotions because it pulls me down, Evan. It pulls me down. That shit. It's
So you know
incredible.
what it is, though? It's not controlling your emotions, right? We all have emotions, right? We're able to downregulate the intensity of them.
Mm.
But emotions, quote unquote, negative emotions, positive emotions, they're emotions.
Yeah.
So the real question is, how am I more conscious about my behavior in the face of these emotions? So when you feel panic, you start training yourself with a new behavior. You are starting to rewire the brain,
Mm.
which is just, that's neuroplasticity. It's fascinating. So when people, I obviously don't want to feel panic. I don't want to feel nervousness. However, to me, they're data points. It doesn't mean Evan at 10 years, I'm not the same kid at 10 that I'm at 53 now. I've trained myself in the face of any emotion to choose conscious behavior. Now, I'm not perfect, obviously. We all have our ups and downs. But for me, emotions are just data. You feel them, you create space. So what happens is when we don't like a feeling and we want to dismiss it, move it aside, we don't get to really know it. And then we don't have the opportunity to be conscious enough to choose behavior. And when you're not aware of this emotion, you will automatically be unconscious and you'll stay in this cycle and wonder why. Just because you don't want to feel something, well, you're living this human experience. Everybody has emotions. There is no such thing as being fearless. However, in the face of fear of judgment, rejection, all these things, we all have this opportunity to choose. That's training. So it's interesting because my job is to bring the unconscious conscious. And then through repetition, we become unconsciously conscious, which they term as flow. So what happens is all this work, we always say you have to slow down in order to speed up. Slowing down has nothing to do with the gas. We're gassing this, but we're being very intentional about forming these new relationships in the brain. And then over time and repetition, it becomes a part of our circuitry. So now the energy that took us to create this new behavior is now in our quote unquote repertoire because it's really been linked in our brains. We can go now use the energy that we use for that to expand.
Mm.
That's growth.
Indeed.
It's a different way to look at it.
Do we have to go to the pain of being slapped in the face because we have been doing something wrong during or the full of our career and suddenly we break in pieces in order to understand what you are saying? Emotion is just data. Evan, I'm saying because it's more a self-reflection. I went through the pain in order to understand that I had to get some stuff in control. And without that pain, even though I had the intuition that I wasn't doing things right, I was continuously in this circle where emotions were taking over, where I felt overwhelmed with work, with not being aligned with my purpose. And only when you break, you understand that you need to do something about it. Do we say that the majority of people has to go through the pain of breaking?
Well, listen, we know there's truth and we learn from struggle, right? There are pivotal moments. However, we also learn in success. So what happens when people are doing well, they will sabotage themselves because they think unconsciously they don't deserve it. So we always think that we only learn through struggle, but we can also learn through success. And I'm sure you have stories of this as well. So you don't need to break in order to really leverage yourself. It's these small, on the struggle side, you don't need to hit quote unquote rock bottom. You have to be aware and have the opportunity to ask yourself a question. Am I doing everything I need to do in order to be the person I want to be? And that answer is no. Doesn't mean you need to go to the gym 18 times a week. It's small incremental change. So you start to really believe that what you say you will do, right? That's repetition. Now we start to change. So now as things are doing better and we feel better because our behavior is shifted, we have to always be able to recommit. Like you said, we have to be able to reflect. Okay, where am I right now? Am I doing everything necessary in order to keep me on this path? And be honest with yourself. So it's funny. It's like, man, I'll give you an example. When people journal, they usually journal when things are going bad. They don't journal when things are going well. They just don't. But ironically, when we're doing well, you heard that cliche, give yourself a little bit of credit. A little bit of credit goes a long way. It's neurologically true because it helps the circuitry in your brain. You don't need a big parade. You need Ivan, well done. Let's do this again. Mm. So we always hear about struggle, and it's true. I did a TEDx talk in January in Houston about post-traumatic growth. It's called PTG, and it's about trauma in our lives. And oftentimes when we're able to acknowledge it and reflect on it, the baseline in our brains can go up. More resilience, more tolerant, more perseverance. But you got to be able to acknowledge it and make a small change. And then what happens is you have to be very tolerant of progress. Give it a chance. Things don't happen. When people hire me, they're like, when am I going to see change? And I say, I don't know. They go, what did you just say? I said, I don't know when it happens, but I know through repetition, like everybody knows, and I speak about this a lot, Ivan, we know how money compounds, right? So if you have $10 in your bank account, it's not a lot, but as you keep growing and growing 100, then it starts to really go. Behavior's the same way. If you give it the opportunity to compound.
But that's a big difficulty. What you're saying about tolerant of change, when we know that most of the, how do you say, the CEOs are impatient. They want things tomorrow. And it is difficult to pass on the message when things have to happen right now.
So that's why small change is important. So if you can get buy-in on that. So I'll tell you, so some clients in the beginning, we know cold exposure. It's called thermogenesis, saunas and cold exposure. Everybody knows about it, how beneficial it is, right? And it's some poo-poo lately that the cold isn't that big, but there's a lot of research that said neurologically it's very good for you. But more than that, going into a cold shower or cold plunge is not desirable. It's not enjoyable. Like I've been doing it for 15 years. But the real reason to do it is to know that you have the ability to do something that's uncomfortable. Period. So all of a sudden, if you're able to do that, Ivan, what else are you capable of doing? That creates, we always hear about motivation. I don't feel motivated. Well, motivation's fleeting. It's nothing. It lasts a second. We're in the game of momentum. But momentum has to start somewhere. And then what happens if you believe that and you start to see these little incremental changes and quit tomorrow, don't quit today, quit tomorrow, it changes everything. It changes your belief system of what's capable for you.
Now, I would like to discuss about this chaos, this noise that we have in the corporate environment. We have endless pings, bosses' demands, and market volatility. How does an executive starts cultivating this clarity when the environment is designed to really to produce confusion, in fact? How do you create this
Well, it's,
moment of clarity?
well, first of all, it's a responsibility, right? So as a, leadership and management are two different things, right? Leadership is a vision and creating influence, where
Mm,
management is accountability, responsibility, setting a structure. So we know that great leaders in times of chaos really prove themselves. So if we are able to reframe that chaos is bad, I'm not saying internal chaos. We're not creating chaos. We just, listen, markets move, industries move. There's always, nobody has an app that tells you, oh, we got a problem coming down the pipe, but let's get ready for it. So if we have the ability to slow down, once again, no gas, and be really intentional about how we respond, that's the first step to everything. Because if we're always in this reactionary mode, we are never going to be conscious. So for leaders, that the CEOs that I work with and athletes, slow down for a second. Obviously, you have all this pressure coming at you. You're overwhelmed. Take a breath, take a moment. Like, obviously, you're frustrated. Obviously, you feel overwhelmed, right? You're nervous about this. You're angry about that. Don't react. Give yourself a second. That little hack or tip right there, in my opinion, is 90% of the game. Because now we've taken these emotions are heightened, right? Anger, frustration, whatever it may be. It comes down a little bit. Now we're in a seat to make a better decision. You keep doing that. First of all, it feels much better to know that you're not reacting. That's different if somebody walks in my house. I have 2 daughters and a wife, and it was a lunatic coming in. I'm able to react then. Maybe that's when it's necessary, but usually it's not. So if you start to really get in this responsive nature, I literally think 50% of your issues are gone.
mm, mm. I think,
Respond. Don't react.
yeah, that is true. I think in one of your talks, you mentioned about the 35,000 decisions in a day that we have to take, and I was wondering how can a leader engineer their day to protect their mental energy to just focus on these 3 or 4 decisions that actually make sense for them, move the needle. How can they do that?
Well, what is Pareto's principle, 80-20, right? So it's really, I'm a big fan of structure. Structure. Now, when people hear structure, they think rigidity. That's not what structure is. To have structure, I didn't say plan, structure, and have the ability to be fluid within it, right? That's adaptability. So for CEOs and engineer, whatever it may be, what does your day look like? Right? We know we can't make, even though we have these 35 and half of those are probably, what are you going to have for lunch? But where do I need most of my mental energy? Now, for a lot of people, it's in the morning, right? So what are the 3 priorities that I want to really tackle today? And that's where your energy goes. Because then what happens is later in the day, as you fatigue, you want to be able to make decisions based on low energy, right? Because you're not as sharp, mostly. I mean, I'm sure some are, some aren't. So how do I structure my day that I'm as optimal as possible? So we know one thing also is that multitasking is possible, but multi-focusing isn't, right? Because what happens is residue that comes from each decision. So how can I set up time blocks in my day to be most productive? And this can't be just a thought. This has to be structured in. So whether I'm dealing with athletes, CEOs, Wall Street professionals, what does our day look like? Are we being, here's this word again, intentional with our time? Because otherwise, time, if we're intentional with time and we use it properly, it becomes an ally, right? Because now we look back, we really made some great progress, like, because we've been really, really conscious and intentional. If we're not, time becomes a foe. Because now we look back 3 months, we haven't done anything really. We've just been spinning our wheels. That's why structure is so important. And I mean, I'm 53. I still live by this. And I think when my kids were one, we had structure for them. Structure's big. It's not a plan. So a plan is in the world of finance, like let's say traders. Traders create plans to create what? Certainty. But what happens when we're not certain about what's going on? The plan goes out the window. So I'd rather have structure and know that I'm able to, these are the things I want to accomplish. I'm able to be flexible within it. That's a much better place to be.
Evan, I want to just to summarize a little bit what we are taking out of this conversation. So you you call it a structure, I call it mental processes. So mental processes are important in order to guide us to be intentional about our day, about how do we want to manage our lives so that we don't find ourselves at 50 and saying, what the hell am I doing? This is not what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's number one. Then we discuss about habits. So repetitive things that we need to do in order to be ready when things go anywhere. It's like
Obstacles, challenges, emergencies, you're ready.
it's almost like fitness, like something that you have to do recurrently in order to see the muscle grow. So, and we are talking about the mental muscle. And now I want to ask you, so the body health, does it have any influence? So can we focus only on the mental, on doing the mental fitness without, I don't know, without going to the gym or
Nope. Answer is no. There
why?
is a mind body. Absolutely. So I'll tell you a story about that. So I'm 53. This is a new shoulder. I have an implant. I blew my knees out a couple times playing college lacrosse. And I've been in a couple accidents. I've done triathlons. And this is about a couple months ago as M1's starting to get bigger and bigger. And we're doing talks. And I've worked out my whole life. But I knew I was getting overwhelmed. This is just recently. And I'm a coach. And we're doing bigger things. And it's just a lot. And I always say one thing. The pressure got too much. You got to get into your body always. So what happens when you go work out, what you're actually doing is you're letting your brain relax.
Mm,
So I hired a trainer to work with me 3 days a week because I realized that overthinking was extremely destructive to me because it was a waste of energy. So these hours that I plan with this guy, his name is Charles, is not only I'm getting better shape, my clarity is getting better because I'm letting my brain relax. So I'm getting into my body, I'm thinking about my footing and my structure and where's my foundation, right? So what he does for the body, I do for the brain, but they have to both live together. You need a fitness routine, not to go pose on GQ, but for your mental health. It's almost like a tire that has too much pressure. You just let a little bit out. So all my clients exercise. They have to. In order to operate in the pressure they're in, this is what do they say? This is a non-negotiable.
mm,
I don't care if it's a 30, 40-minute walk. You need to slow your brain down and give it a chance to breathe. So when we talk about exercise, being in Switzerland, going into the hills and taking a walk in nature,
mm.
it's not a waste of time. It should be mandatory.
Hmm. Should we do it? Like, do you advise that if you're taking care of your body, you go to the fitness that because you mentioned that the purpose is to let your brain relax. So should we only focus on the body, not having any Spotify, listening to the last podcast that you miss or you want to listen to the news? Should you really focus only on yourself and not have anything to listen to or to learn while you are exercising?
It's interesting. I think this is more of an opinion than I can back it with so much science. For me, I like quietness when I work out, right? So I don't listen to anything. I just like to feel my body and things like that. But for some people, they listen to a podcast or music and they're able to, they only know, down regulate and just literally just create a little detachment from what's going on, then go for it. Whatever works for you, right? I think there's science on both sides. For me, I like to have a complete detox.
Uh-huh.
It's just me working out. That's it. That helps me out. But you know what? Get into the gym. Go for work first. Don't even worry about that, right? Just get into motion. It's all important. So that when I'm a mind guy, right? That's what I do for a living. But I'm not silly enough to say that you better have a great exercise routine.
Hmm.
By the way, if you want to be optimal, so I coach the top 0.001%, and this is what these people do. They are really, really intentional about this stuff. Now, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you really want to put yourself in a seat of being really optimal in what you're doing, there's no excuses on the road to excellence. These are all mandatory things you need to be doing.
Hmm.
And we all know it.
So it doesn't make the difference. So in order to be able to tackle high performance in the right way, so we have talked about these mental processes, habit, preparation, a little bit like a fitness, so that you get the right mental reflexes. But the last point, which I find it quite important and sometimes put aside because people believes that they don't have the time to go to the gym, or sometimes you don't need, as you say, you don't need the gym. If you have a dog, go 20 minutes with the dog in the nature.
Yeah.
You need to find excuses, anything that is going to remove friction. You don't have the 2 hours, you don't have the money to go to get a coach, or you hate coaches because they are yelling all the time, then just do the
Do something. Start your own momentum train, right? Because what happens is I don't have money for this. Can't do this. That's just an excuse. And by the way, there's a great book by Adam Grant. He's a psychologist out of the University of Pennsylvania called Hidden Potential.
yeah.
And he has this great line: procrastination isn't the lack of effort, it's the fear of a future feeling.
Hmm.
Procrastination is not lack of effort, it's the fear of a future feeling. Anybody can take a walk outside.
Hmm.
Anybody, right? So maybe you can't afford the gym but you can do a push-up, you can do an air squat, you can get an app for $5 and follow something. So have a moment you say, why am I procrastinating? What am I afraid of? And the greatest part, when you ask yourself that question, you don't have to answer it. What happens in it's called self-exploratory questions. When we're able to ask ourselves a question, right? It sounds reflective. It puts you in the seat of control because you're being honest with yourself. Very important. And then what happens is John goes out, takes a walk with his dog. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, he's like, you know what? I'm going to do some push-ups. And then all of a sudden, you know what? He can't afford the gym and he goes to the gym twice a week. So now as he starts to stack days, weeks, and months, he's like, how did this all start? By me walking my dog? Yeah.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be Herculean either. It doesn't. And there's so many stories that I can go into about that. That would be a 5-hour podcast.
Evan, I have the impression that people with power sometimes lose a little bit of self-awareness. So they have a vision about themselves that might be completely wrong. They think that they are invincible in the sense that they can push the limits about how much stress they can live with, how much uh, unhealthy life they can survive with, because I have seen people having meetings of 10 hours, then going for drinks, and then the next morning being there at 7 o'clock in the office. So it becomes a little bit crazy. And I'm pretty sure that you have observed that. Um, I have a question for you in two parts. The first part is, why do you believe that these CEOs or these people with power cannot realize the dangers of not taking care of their mind and body? That's part number one. And two, how can they spot these little signs of mental fatigue that executives often ignore until it's too late?
Well, obviously, the first question is a very good question. And a lot of that is just programming, right? When you look at, and I'd say like younger CEOs now are very into this holistic wealth movement where, they do triathlons, they really yoga. I think the younger sector, that's not the right word, but is becoming more holistic. They understand the connection between mind and body. I think the baby boomers have been out there, maybe not. It's just different programming. So it's very hard, it's hard to change somebody who's 60. It just is. Even as if they get in better shape, but there's alcohol, there's all these different things. For me, it's hard as a coach because I want to say, let's just start small. And it's a different mentality sometimes. But when you talk about how you can be aware, it goes right back to the same thing we're discussing. If you find yourself reacting, there's a crack in the foundation somewhere. There's a crack. And by the way, you could be yelling at your children out of nowhere because you're feeling disrespected. And it's not your kid, by the way, it's somebody else in your life, right? If you start reacting and biting, there's a crack somewhere.
Yeah.
That should be, red flags should be going up all over the place. And you need to have a moment with yourself. Well, how am I feeling and why? Why am I reacting? What's going on really? Very powerful. That is the crack, right? And then, there's other things, when we talk about trauma, and I'm going off on a tangent for a second, but we all have things that happen to us in life. And unfortunately, some of those things can't be restored ever again. So instead of filling that void, how do we expand as people? Like, is it setting a new challenge for yourself? Is it going to experience something different? Right? We don't have to be the same. We don't need to fill voids in our life that are gone sometimes. You lose a loved one, a parent, a child, or whatever. Something was taken from you. Sometimes you can't restore that. And you have to go outside and build new relationships, experiences, memories. That's just how things are sometimes. So why I say you got to be compassionate with yourself. Right? But compassionate doesn't mean excuses. It's giving yourself the chance to go feel and explore.
Feeling and exploring. Can it be that when you have these discussions with a coach, with a CEO, you realize that in fact what they are doing today is because they want to comply with the expectations of society, being wealthy, having a nice house, and in fact, in the back of their mind, their purpose is not that, something else. Maybe they have to become photographers. Sorry, I say that because I watched a movie yesterday that made me think about it. Does it happen that in some cases, it's not about improving, it's not that performance, it means improving what you are doing, making yourself more better at what you are doing currently, but maybe performance is refocusing your energy to something else that it can be outside of the business world. Does it happen, Evan?
So I spent 25 years on Wall Street. And when I was 46, I thought I had a heart attack. And it actually was a panic attack. And it was years of chronic stress. I was an athlete, so I unfortunately had a lot of concussions and this buried trauma growing up. I was raised by a single mother. I have an identical twin. I have an older brother who was handicapped. My father was a homeless crackhead. And we just shoved things aside. We just said, just keep being strong, right? And everything started to build up. And what it is that all of a sudden we're motivated by something. So I was a Wall Street guy coming from University of Pennsylvania. So I was obviously motivated by what? Money.
Mm.
And then something started to shift early on before this heart attack. Like, I didn't want to be on Wall Street anymore. I didn't want to trade anymore. I never liked any of it. And I was just pretty good at it. And when this heart attack slash panic attack happened, I always wanted to be motivated by impact. Because I really think services of others is the greatest thing you can do. So when you think about CEOs, our motivations change. Now, by the way, being motivated by not money, but by impact doesn't hurt the top line or bottom line at all. We all change. So if that is true, why can't we be motivated by other things?
Mm.
So now I've been coaching now 8.5 years. I have my own coaching company, but I'm really motivated by impact. When I work with people and they start to really develop, that's the greatest thing. It's the greatest. So for me now, it's seeing people really shine is so impactful to me. That's what I want to do with my life. Now, does that hurt the top line? No, doing all right.
Mm.
But I just switched. I allowed myself, and I was very lucky this happened to me, because I think I'd still be trading. But we're motivated by different things in life. So why not allow yourself that opportunity?
Indeed.
I'd rather be motivated by impact at this time of my life than money. So our motivation shift. So and if we believe that and know that, you can let go of the proverbial rope. Just let go. This is what I want to do now. This is where my life meaning is. And go see. Get curious.
I love this story. It's quite inspiring. And I like what you say at the end. It makes me think about the possibility that you need to explore, you to validate what is the best version of yourself, going one iteration at a time, because sometimes we believe that, yes, we want to help people, but maybe it's not our thing. Go do a micro experiment somewhere just to validate if this is what you want. You have the right to fail and pivot.
Be curious, right? Curiosity in its essence is just information seeking.
Mm.
Right? So I wanted to be a coach. And this is a long time ago. And then I had the opportunity. But what happens if I'm not a good coach? And everybody says, you're going to be a great coach, Evan. I could do one or two things. I could say, I'm not going to coach out of fear of rejection, embarrassment, judgment. Or I can get really curious and say, you know what? Let me go see what it looks like. And what's so interesting, Ivan, is the world of curiosity doesn't limit the downside of rejection, but it opens the door to possibility. So when we think about rejection and how it anchors us down from having the ability not to grow, curiosity is like, you know what? I may fail. However, this may be what I'm doing now. This may be the path I need to be on. It doesn't hold you back. That's the beauty thing of curiosity. It takes these unconscious resistances, which is the same thing, and makes them a little softer so you're able to experiment and explore. It's wonderful.
That tied so well with your initial message that we are built through opportunities on uncertainty and going ways that you weren't expecting, going and validating, experimenting. Is this the only path to have an exceptional life? Not the boring life. Yeah, we can end up with one or some millions in the bank, but what a fucking boring life we can have also with these millions too.
Nobody's perfect. So that's the beauty. If I said to you, Ivan, how old are you? Can I ask, Ivan? Ivan, how old are you?
Same age as you, 53.
Are you born in 1972?
Duh. October 31st.
March 29. Awesome. It's a great 1972 is a massive year. But if I said to you, Ivan, you're perfect. You're never going to grow again. You're perfect the way you are. You'd be like, fuck you, Evan. I got so much more I want to go experience. Like we have a course coming out for traders called here's a little plug, M1 Mental Trading Academy. It's going to come out in May. So my mother goes to me, she's like, how do you think it's going to go? I said, I don't know. I've never done one. She goes with me. I go, I have no idea. She goes, do you think it's going to work? I go, I hope so. I have no idea, Mom. I've never done a course before, coaching, but it's like doing a TEDx talk. How do you think I'm going to be nerd? I don't know. I've never done one. Let me go see. Now, is this course? I mean, I think it's going to be awesome. But if it's not, what did we learn from this? How do we tweak it to get better at these things? But at least I'm on the field. It may flop. I don't know. But I won't know unless I do it.
Indeed.
So really, what's the worst case scenario? So when we talk about emotions, fear of rejection, judgment, embarrassment, Ivan, there's one that reigns supreme over all of them. You know what that emotion is? Regret.
Yes. That's right.
Regret. So am I going to regret not doing this? Am I going to regret just staying on Wall Street, never seeing? I always want to be a coach and a teacher. Yeah, I am. Is it going to work? I have no fucking idea. But I know the real downside is me not trying to do it. And so when you think of the quiet mind, go ahead.
Exact. And the example that we give to the people who cares, your two daughters, by the way, I also have two daughters, that our family. So we want to give an example of somebody who has tried to dare to do things, not someone who was in an office somewhere working a corporate life and never at home. Yeah.
It's as if you want to live the corporate life 9 to 5, and that's what you really want to do. And listen, we all have responsibilities, right? So every day can't be Shangri-La and stuff like that. We have responsibilities. And if you don't like, I always said there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's just none. It's complete bullshit. However, you can create harmony, right? So how do you create the harmony in your 24 hours a day, right? And if you don't like your job and you have a family, I'm not saying quit tomorrow, but really take a walk and say, I know I'm not optimal sitting here, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may be. Where do I want to be? And know that it's not perfect to start. But where do you want to be? If you want to be somewhere else. Some people, by the way, like being in the middle lane. They like being in the right-hand lane, like in the States, going slower, right? So be it. But if you don't, and you want to change, and you feel like something's holding you back, give yourself the opportunity to become curious and go see. I can guarantee you it won't be perfect. Guarantee that. But go see. I really believe, Ivan, if that's what you want, you will be pleasantly surprised about what you're really capable of doing. It all starts here.
Evan, so how do people who are interested about testing their possibilities, testing their options, talking about their own performance, or how to prepare themselves either to build themselves in the path where they are today or maybe another path, how can they reach you out to ask you questions, to know a little bit more about this quiet edge and maybe about their performance? Traders, not traders, it doesn't matter.
It does, it doesn't matter, right? If you're in a seat of high decision making, we all can get better. But even if you want to change and you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, there's so many interferences that you're not aware of. So we have a wonderful website. It's the m1performancegroup.com. My team has done an incredible job. There's insights and blog posts, and which I think are the same thing, and social media. And we've been on a lot of podcasts. And there's a discovery button on there if you want to get a hold of me to have an introductory call. We have a TEDx coming out about post-traumatic growth. That should be out in the next 2 weeks. We're excited about that. That's from TEDx Third Ward, which is out of Houston. That was on Jan 10th. It's coming out soon. We have this course coming out May 1st called the M1 Mental Trading Academy for all those traders and risk takers out there. It's a 6-week intense course, not meant for everybody. It's intense. That starts May 1st. And we're doing a lot of speaking gigs all over the world. So hopefully You'll see it on our website. And then we have a book coming out, shooting for the end of this year, but to be more conservative, probably the first quarter of 27. And it's called The Quiet Edge. Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff going on, Ivan.
I really look forward to read your book. That's number one. Secondly, I'm going to be putting all of the links that mentioned below this episode. Evan, it was wonderful to speak to you. Really, thank you very much.
And always a pleasure hanging around with a fellow 1972 man. Yes.
There are not so many of us.